In North America, there are a lot of small communities with small tax bases and budgets that are fairly underserved when it comes to emergency planning products. I've discovered an interesting little niche there. You don't get in there automatically because you've got the best, flashiest prices. It takes a long time to build trust-based relationships. Instantly, as soon as I saw Searchy, I recognized it's a platform that would enable a new way of delivering digital emergency plans. I had that aha moment of brilliance. I am very interested in your Wisdom AI. That's huge, absolutely huge. When I mix all of that sort of stuff in there together, the riches are in the niches for sure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Spotlight interview series. My name is Paulina. I'm joined today by Steve. Steve, how's it going today for you?
I am just living the consultant dream, Paulina, as is my cat, Persia here. If you can sort of see parts of her, she'll be coming in and out of this. I have no control over that. So,
I love that. I think part of these Spotlight interview series is normalizing that work from home life. So I'm really happy that your friend can join us today for the interview. So with that, I want to get right into it. Steve, I'd love for you to tell our community who you are, what type of work you do, because I know that it's a little bit non-traditional, and who you serve.
Sure. So my name is Steve Newton, and actually coming up at the end of May, I will have been a consultant in the public safety and emergency management world for 5 years. And I'd just love to tell everybody that I retired on a Thursday. I took the whole team to the bar. I got my first call on Friday morning, and Monday morning I was billing my first client, and it hasn't stopped since. That's generally where I'm operating 99% of the time.
Amazing. And I know that you have quite a lot of work in the online space. Do you mind talking a little bit in terms of what type of coaching and consulting work you do?
The consulting work is my primary focus these days, but I'm certainly expanding into some other avenues now. But most of it is around strategic planning for disaster management, emergency response, emergency recovery, for communities. And I've discovered an interesting little niche there, and that is in North America, there are a lot of small communities with small tax bases and budgets that are fairly underserved when it comes to emergency planning products. So I've just kind of worked my way in that, and I've dabbled and explored a bunch of stuff and landed on a pretty nice suite of services so far. I would say right now, my last metrics were about 70% of my client base is Indigenous communities, which is a different world to operate in. You don't get in there automatically because you've got the best, flashiest product or the best prices. It takes a long time to build trust-based relationships. So I'm quite happy to be working in that world, and I very much enjoy it.
That's amazing. And we always talk about how the riches are in the niches. And I think that's a really good example of finding a niche that really works and using a lot of really specific information to cater the really unique problems that appear in that niche. And I know that in terms of your creative problem solving, innovation is at the core of a lot of the work that you do. You're constantly innovating when it comes to finding new ways to help people find better ways to manage their information system. So I know that there's a little bit of a misconception about innovation being scary and requiring, a lot of resources, potentially sunk cost as well. What would you say is at the key of why you continue to keep innovating and the value that it serves the market that you serve?
Well, I'd just like to say that innovation is the icing on the Hearst cake that is strong systems thinking. So let me unpack that a little bit. I've got a very strong systems thinking ability, which means I can connect a lot of dots at once. So for those of you that are going, yeah, that's me, you will instantly recognize that also means shiny objects and rabbit holes are your thing, right? Part of my innovation comes from that ability, but I'm also not afraid to try things. So if you look at my Bitwarden encrypted password protection thing, I have over 240 passwords. So I am forever buying the next best tool or something that I think makes me curious. And that can be anything from Humitar video production tools to a virtual reality environment production tools and all that stuff. So I'm always trying all this stuff and figuring out how to piece it all together. So it's a blessing, absolutely. It can be a bit of a curse at times. And if my wife were here, she would probably want to comment on that because it can take me away from some of my family time, but I'm getting better at that. That's the one thing though, Paulina, is I just keep looking at new stuff all the time and I keep trying stuff. I mean, all of the, what I like to call the tier one online marketing gurus, of which Stu McLaren would be one of them for sure. I've purchased from most of those people. And it's not because I think it's the next best thing that's going to make me rich, but I want to see what they're doing because they're almost always on top of the latest best practices. You know, this AI tsunami that's hitting us the last few months is one example for sure. Your Wisdom AI thing as a specific example. For me, I like to keep in touch and I like to test all this stuff and I like to learn and whatever. And I take the best practices from a lot of these things and kind of pull it into my products.
I love that. And I think it represents, the paired insights that we get from a lot of people that we follow online and how we can find ways to see how that can contribute to our own space. So I know that dealing with a lot of emergency plans require probably more attention to detail than most people are comfortable working with. How does your industry shape how you design your digital programs and how you consult with your clients? I think there is a lot of overwhelm that happens sometimes with information, and the general consensus is always to simplify. When we're dealing with emergency response teams, a lot of that, may deal with simplification, but a lot of that information is needed. So how does your industry shape how you approach all of your clients and how you consult with them?
Generally, I think the context there, I'll use the public safety emergency management domain, although there's many sort of tentacles for sure in that and niches, if you will. We're still dealing with an a domain that has got what I call old school practices, but they need to have the old school practices. So you can go all in on the latest, greatest, best technology for sure, but as soon as the cell towers are down and the power grid's knocked out, unless you've got some pretty good contingencies or generating systems or what have you, it's always going to come back down to whiteboards and paper copies of plans and checklists and flowcharts and that sort of stuff. So for me, maintaining that recognition and that balance, that creates a bit of a challenge because the people coming up through the ranks right now were basically born with a cell phone in their hands. They don't know anything but this, right? So they are very, very quick to recognize opportunities in technology and adopt it. It does create a bit of a conflict at some times with the older business practices. Another big practice here, and this is something that I've recognized early on, is that not everybody is wired for this emergency management world. Some of us are response adrenaline junkies. Like, you can't give me a forest fire big enough. I just love those things, right? And they don't scare me. Other people, as soon as they see that, they run to the other side of the world pretty much, right? It's not for everybody. So what we're starting to see around that sort of stuff, because there's becoming more and more events, there's more burnout. So there's a lot of new people coming into the game. There's a lot of younger people coming into the game that don't have the benefit of many, many years or decades of experience for their sense making. That's creating another bit of a challenge. But recognizing that early on, that was my first aha moment around Searchie was, hey, here's a tool that can help me address that problem that exists, with the turnover and the lack of knowledge. And how do you train people so that they are confident and competent? Two different words there, confident and competent, when they're thrown into the thick of things on game day with very little training or experience or what have you. So this whole notion of Searchie and it's serving up a bunch of explainer how-to kind of videos, all that sort of stuff, it works so well in my world. Another big one here, for the personality types out there, there's a lot of alpha personalities in the emergency management world in general. That can be difficult sometimes to try and introduce new business practices because that presents a pretty significant resistance to change a lot of the time. But so that's coming around here. And understanding the adult learning styles, I guess, is part of that. So again, video appeals to a few different learning styles here on points. Another big challenge we've got is a lot of the people in this game are either volunteers or paid on call volunteers that have got a life and they've got a regular job. Yeah, there's a bunch of paid, police, fire, ambulance, emergency management types, but there's also a lot of these volunteers. So it's not their 24/7 day job. Another thing that I see starting to happen that it sort of is shaping some of my thinking is with all these young folks coming in and having been born with that cell phone or that smartphone in their hands, they are very receptive to gamified methods of learning. So really at a base level, video can be part of that in terms of how you organize it and present it. We've got another sort of dynamic here that we deal with all the time in that there are a few market dominators in the IT world in emergency management. And so their way of doing things, they've got their big, massive, huge, loyal followings, which creates even bigger barriers to change, because there's huge investment in time, training, staffing, software, hardware, all of that sort of stuff, right? So those are all the other challenges. So I deal with that stuff, think about that stuff every day. And perhaps one other thing that's really helping me sort of shape this up, and I can only really speak to British Columbia here and Canada, and that is the Indigenous communities generally are kind of behind the curve on this emergency management stuff. Our federal government has a legal responsibility for public safety on Indian Reserve lands. And if you believe everything you read in all the auditors' reports and stuff, they didn't do that good of a job. So a lot of the First Nations communities are playing catch up. They're working on developing capacity and their plans and all that sort of stuff, right? So when I mix all of that sort of stuff in there together, the riches are in the niches for sure. It's probably a good way to put it, like you say.
Steve, that was an amazing response because I think above all, it really shows us how much you know about your audience and how closely we're able to correlate what we know about our audience, their habits, their beliefs, as you mentioned, how all of those things can inform exactly what type of content we deliver for them. And you spoke a lot at the beginning kind of about the balance as well in terms of it being tricky. So I wanted to talk about what sort of things have shifted the balance in your favor. So how has Searchie allowed you to up-level the way that you're able to serve your audience and also solve for some of those problems that you're seeing inside of your industry?
Okay, well, we don't have enough time for that on this call today, so I'll condense that down a little bit, Paulina. So when it comes to specific Searchie features, I will just preface that by saying the way that I got turned on to Searchie was at one of the big guru 3-day sessions, I don't know, somewhere down in California, I forget where it was, or maybe it was Arizona or Texas. Anyway, I went there, and your friend Will was there. Stu McLaren was one of the guest speakers on stage, and I just thought, okay, I better pay attention to these guys, right? And I actually got a free piece of swag out of the booth when Searchie was there. But what that did, that also got me in on the earliest stages of your beta testing. And instantly, as soon as I saw Searchie, I recognized why it was developed by you guys, right? For managing all your video content and all that great stuff that's evolved out of that. But what I saw was a platform that would enable a new way of delivering digital emergency plans instead of the old school way. So currently, digital emergency plan means PDF or some hybrid of Word documents and spreadsheets and that kind of stuff, SharePoint sites. That, there's lots of that going on. It can also mean a very dominant market software like WebEOC or one of those types, right? Okay. Well, I put a little different spin on that. And I can deliver some pretty interesting stuff through mobile, and a big part of it is served up by Searchie. So I love it. The playlists and hubs and the ability to duplicate, that's awesome because in my game, a bunch of information is pretty much static. It never changes. This is I like to call it the bum fluffery filler that you put into the 75-pound binder that sits on the shelf that nobody ever reads, okay? But then there's always the specific stuff, locations, where your vulnerable populations are, where your evacuation routes are in a community. All this sort of static stuff is pretty easy to park somewhere and point to and how to explain our videos dealing with that. And then that allows me to focus in specifically on the exact community and their exact needs and their exact business flows. And I can design stuff quite easily. And again, feed out of Searchie. So I just love that. The search was cool, and I still like that. That's a distinguishing feature. And I'm just looking at my notes that I made for you here. I am very, very interested in your Wisdom AI. I attended the town hall last week, and I thought, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool, until I had that aha moment of brilliance when Stu mentioned his AI example about asking Wisdom AI to about one of the clients that he's taught. And there's this very accurate description came back based on that. Now, I know that most of your content is many, many minutes or hours long kind of stuff. And it's got lots of filler conversation in it, and jokes and stories about the family and all that sort of stuff. So the AI has to parse through all of that and make sense. My explainer videos are concise. Like every one of them is less than a minute and they're exactly on topic. So what I think I'm seeing here is that the AI ability to go exactly make the best sense because it doesn't have to filter out a bunch of other stuff. So I'm very excited about that sort of thing. I should have by September about 6,800 explainer videos. So that's in play. Something I'm also thinking here to make that sort of a little bit stronger is tagging. Like you've been building an actual tag called Wisdom AI. And then when I use the Wisdom AI, I'll point it just at anything that's got that tag. So that way it doesn't have to look at all the other stuff that I've got around other things, like my internal business meetings and all that sort of stuff. I'm also very interested in the YouTube import piece because in my world of SEO link love, if I can put 800 explainer videos on YouTube and have them pointing at my website, plus other videos from other sources and bringing them into that Wisdom AI thing, I think that's huge, absolutely huge. So I'll be playing with some of that stuff here in the next few months for sure. I like the flexibility of what you can put on the pages. So there's a series of themed videos, training videos or whatever you want. But another thing I've done is I've gone out and I've pulled together about probably 40 or 50 situational awareness sites. So I've just grabbed the URLs. I've put them into a button in Searchy. I've done a screen capture and I've cut and I've modified it a little bit in Canva. And then I've put that on as the backdrop so that now all of that stuff that used to be a million shortcuts on my desktop is all condensed into something, right? That's a huge value add. And that was such a simple one there. And then the other part is because it's all URL based, you can point this to a third-party tool. So again, in my world, Web EOC, particularly in the United States, is a dominant tool. So small town USA can have this tool pointing at that large piece of software and go do what it needs to do there, but still have everything it needs here as part of their digital emergency plan. Just love that. I just love that. And then all of that, of course, because you can tie your hubs to a URL, an individual URL, that lends so nicely to building a mobile app. And it's very quick and simple. So I'm just going to put this out there to everybody that if you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on a mobile app, go grab yourself a bottle of wine, sit down and rethink all of that stuff, because Searchy plus any plethora of mobile app builders right now equals a very inexpensive way to build out a mobile solution. I just love that. That was obvious to me right at the outset. So that's a long way, a winding way of saying that I love Searchy. I guess it's I don't do everything on Searchy, but it is absolutely core to my services that I deliver.
I love that, Steve. You shared so many really good nuggets in there in terms of the value that Searchy's been able to provide. And I can see from your answer as well how using Searchy has allowed you to shape a better future with more potential for helping your clients and then them helping their communities in return. So we've talked a lot about what the future holds and what you've been able to accomplish in your amazing time serving your clients. So for the last question to wrap up this interview, I wanted to take us back a little bit to the past. In this interview, you've shared a couple really key aha moments that have helped you make some changes inside of your business in terms of how you approach how you do business and how you serve your clients. If you could go back to the beginning, where Coach Steve was getting his first coaching and consulting clients, what's one thing that you wish you knew back then that, would have saved you a lot of heartache now, or would have helped you make a lot more progress faster?
With the exception of the AI and the virtual extended reality stuff that's now coming into play in all of this in a very exciting way, I wish I'd known about, or I wish Searchy had been available when I first started out a couple of years earlier, because I would already have the digital plans. Like I've got paying clients for that now, and that's awesome. But I easily would have been 2 or 3 years ahead of all of that stuff. Would have allowed for some market scalability there for sure. Definitely that's the one thing. Well, maybe the one other thing is also always be recording, like you guys say, right? Video is king here or queen here. I didn't do a lot of video initially. I understood the value of it for video sales letters and marketing and all that sort of good stuff, right? Advertising and that sort of thing. But I didn't fully understand it in the context of adult learning and gamification and what have you. So if I know a bit more about how video really, really works with the brain, other than what just everybody says you need to be doing it, I think that would have given me a new way of focusing on some stuff as well. But anyway, we're getting there. The universe is getting me there when I'm supposed to be there. So I'm happy about that.
Amazing, Steve. Well, I think a lot of it does go back to the potential of video. So we definitely share that in together. Wanted to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your own experiences. It's so amazing to see your passion for innovation and the care that you have for your clients, your communities, and the communities that you have an impact. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Steve, for joining us for a Searchie Spotlight session. And I can't wait for this to air online so that our community members can learn as much from you that I learned from you today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I just plant one little seed for everybody before we leave here? Hey, I'm going to challenge all of you to go back and grab that second bottle of wine, if that's what it takes, and start thinking about how you can take your Searchie worlds over into the metaverse. And I can tell you, there's a pretty easy way to do that right now. And it just involves having a good structure around how your Searchie stuff is set up and with the appropriate tags and what have you, and then feeding it into the virtual environments. Go think about that. I think there is a searchiemall.com kind of an opportunity here coming up somehow. A community of practice in a metaverse sort of thing around everybody who uses very similar practices with searching. So I'll just let you all go and think about that for a bit. It's there. The opportunity is there. That's all I can say about that.
I love it. That's the power duo we all need in our lives. So I'm looking forward to maybe meeting again in the future, and we can definitely chat more about your experiments with Searchie and the metaverse. So thank you again very much, Steve.
I will show you by the fall. I'll have something pretty cool to show.
Thanks.
Thank you.